For narcissists, every relationship feels like a game, one of control, manipulation, and endless cycles. They thrive on knowing they can discard you and pull you back in whenever they please. But psychologists explain that nothing terrifies them more than a true, final goodbye. When the game is over, when you walk away and mean it, the narcissist's carefully crafted illusion begins to crumble. At first, they don't believe it. Narcissists expect drama, fights, or tears, but not silence. Psychologists say their denial is instant. They'll be back. They always come back. This overconfidence blinds them to reality. That denial hurts them later because the absence stretches longer than they imagined, and for the first time, they realize you might actually be gone for good. When reality sinks in, rage follows. Psychologists describe this as a narcissistic injury. Their ego cannot accept rejection. They lash out with insults, smear campaigns, or sudden bursts of anger. This rage is a mask for fear, because beneath it they're panicking. The final goodbye proves their power wasn't permanent, and that shatters the identity they spent years protecting. But rage quickly turns into desperation. Narcissists often attempt hoovering, sending sweet messages, fake apologies, or dramatic pleas. Psychologists explain that these aren't signs of love but attempts to regain control. They'll promise change, cry, or even claim emergencies. It's not about missing you as a person. It is about missing the supply you once provided. When hoovering fails, they play the victim. Psychologists say this is their attempt to flip the story. Suddenly, they're the one who was mistreated, abandoned, or misunderstood. They want sympathy not just from you, but from anyone who will listen. This tactic exposes their fear of accountability. They can't face the truth, so they rewrite it, hoping others will believe their version. If the victim act doesn't work, they shift to replacement. Narcissists often rush into new relationships, flaunting their new love to prove they're unaffected. Psychologists confirm this is a performance, a desperate attempt to hurt you and repair their ego. But inside they're haunted by your absence. The new supply can never erase the void left by a true final goodbye. In quiet moments, regret creeps in. Narcissists rarely admit it, but psychologists emphasize that losing someone who truly cared creates emptiness. They replay memories, wondering how they lost control. But instead of owning their behavior, they blame you or circumstances. This regret is shallow, but it lingers because deep down, they know the loss is permanent. Some narcissists spiral into paranoia. They imagine you talking about them, exposing their secrets, or living happily without them. Psychologists note that this paranoia stems from insecurity. The thought of losing control of the narrative terrifies them. They fear the world will finally see them for who they are, because without your silence, their mask is vulnerable. Others numb themselves with distractions. They throw themselves into work, social media, or fleeting pleasures. Psychologists describe this as avoidance. They cannot face the silence left behind. But no distraction lasts forever. When the noise fades, they're still left with the truth. The game is over, and they no longer have access to the person who once fueled their ego. And here's the ultimate truth. Narcissists don't handle final goodbyes with grace or acceptance. They handle them with rage, denial, and desperate attempts to cling. Psychologists remind us that their suffering comes from their inability to value love when it was present. The final goodbye is the mirror they can't escape, the proof that their games have consequences. When you say goodbye for the last time, the narcissist first tests your resolve. Psychologists explain that they may send a casual text or call, pretending nothing happened. This is a trap. They want to see if the door is still open. But when you don't respond, the silence feels like a slap. For someone who thrives on control, indifference is the deepest wound. Their pride doesn't let them admit they're hurt, so they put on a show. Psychologists note that they might post pictures online, showing how happy and unbothered they are. But this performance isn't real. Behind the staged smiles is fear. The more they flaunt, the more desperate they are to convince themselves and others that they're not breaking inside. As time passes, anger resurfaces. Narcissists may lash out by bad-mouthing you to mutual friends or family, Psychologists describe this as a smear campaign, designed to damage your image while repairing theirs. But here's the hook. These attacks only reveal how obsessed they still are. The harder they try to discredit you, the clearer it becomes that your goodbye shook them deeply. Some narcissists attempt revenge. Psychologists say they might try to sabotage your work, friendships, or new relationships. This isn't about you. It's about soothing their ego. They can't stand the thought of you moving on peacefully. But the more they try to hurt you, the more they expose their true colors to the world, making your decision to leave look even wiser. When revenge fails, they retreat into self-pity. Psychologists emphasize that they'll tell stories about how cruelly you treated them, painting themselves as the abandoned one. This act is another mask, hiding the truth. They are terrified of facing life without you. Final goodbyes force them to confront a reality they can't twist. Their control is gone. Narcissists also struggle with the loss of routine. Psychologists explain that toxic dynamics, even painful ones, give them predictability. They knew how to push your buttons and reel you back in. But with a true goodbye, that cycle ends. The silence feels unbearable because it strips them of the familiar dance that gave them purpose. Loneliness creeps in faster than they admit. Narcissists often surround themselves with people, but psychologists say most of those relationships are shallow. When you leave, the loss feels bigger than expected. They realize you were their main source of validation. That loneliness is crushing, because they know deep down that no one else will tolerate their behavior the way you did. To cope, many narcissists rush into new relationships. Psychologists highlight that this isn't love, it's survival. They need a new supply to distract them from the pain of your absence. But replacements never work. Every new person is compared to you, and every comparison reminds them of what they lost when the game ended for good. Their obsession with you doesn't fade quickly. Psychologists confirm that narcissists replay scenarios in their heads, wondering how they lost control. They stalk your social media, ask about you through friends, or lurk in the background. The final goodbye becomes a ghost that follows them, because closure is something they cannot create for themselves. They may even rewrite history to cope. Psychologists explain that narcissists often minimize the importance of the relationship, telling themselves you weren't that special or never really mattered. But this lie doesn't last. In quiet moments, they remember the truth. You gave them love, patience, and loyalty. That realization cuts deep, because they know they'll never have it again. One of the most painful parts of a true goodbye is seeing you thrive without them. Psychologists say narcissists expect you to collapse, begging for them back. But when you smile, grow, and succeed, it destroys their illusion of power. Your happiness without them is proof that they were never as essential as they believed. That truth hurts them more than rejection. Final goodbyes also strip away their fantasy of control. Narcissists believe they'll always be able to return to you, no matter what. Psychologists emphasize that when you close the door for good, it's like cutting off their oxygen. They regret underestimating your strength because they never thought you'd walk away permanently. Denial returns in cycles. Narcissists may convince themselves you'll change your mind eventually. Psychologists explain that this hope fuels their attempts to check in, even years later. But every unanswered call reminds them of reality. That repeated rejection reopens the wound of your final goodbye, leaving them stuck in endless loops of regret. Some narcissists sink into bitterness. Psychologists note that instead of reflecting, they project blame. They'll say you were too sensitive or ungrateful. But these accusations are defense mechanisms. The truth, that they lost someone who genuinely cared, is too painful to accept. Blame is their shield, but it cannot erase the loneliness left behind. Others drown in envy. Psychologists explain that seeing you loved, respected, and supported by others highlights what they destroyed. They envy the connections you build because they know they can't replicate them. That envy becomes a constant reminder that their games cost them the chance to experience real love. The final goodbye also triggers fear of abandonment. Narcissists carry deep wounds of rejection from childhood, and psychologists emphasize that losing you reactivates those fears. It's not just about the present, it's about old scars reopening. The hurt is overwhelming because your departure confirms their deepest belief, that no one will ever stay forever. Some narcissists attempt to reinvent themselves after a true goodbye. Psychologists say they may suddenly act spiritual, humble, or self-aware. But this change is usually shallow, designed to lure you back. Over time, the mask cracks again. The goodbye forced them to reflect, but without genuine accountability, their attempts at transformation fall apart. Regret deepens with time. Psychologists confirm that narcissists often realize too late that they lost someone unique. They replay moments of kindness, remembering how you stood by them when no one else did. That regret gnaws at them, because they understand they'll never find someone willing to love them through their flaws again. Final goodbyes expose their emptiness. Psychologists note that narcissists often feel hollow inside, but they avoid it with distractions. When you leave, the emptiness expands. Without your energy to fill the void, they're left alone with their true self. That self is something they've always run from, and now there's nowhere to hide. Over time, they may cycle between anger, sadness, and denial. Psychologists describe this as their version of grief, though it lacks acceptance. Unlike healthy grief, theirs never reaches peace. Instead, it loops endlessly because they can't let go of the fantasy of control. That's the cost of the final goodbye, a wound that never heals. They also struggle with the loss of routine communication. Even toxic patterns gave them security. Psychologists say the silence after a true goodbye feels louder than words. Every day without your reaction reminds them that the game is over. That absence is hurtful because it strips them of predictability, leaving them unsettled and restless. Some narcissists spiral into addiction. Psychologists note that substances, spending, or reckless behaviors become ways to numb the pain. They can't sit with the consequences of their actions, so they escape. But addiction only deepens their suffering, proving that the final goodbye didn't just wound them. It exposed the emptiness they always carried. They regret when they see you respected by others. Psychologists explain that narcissists hate losing control of your reputation. But when people admire your strength, it reminds them of their weakness. That respect is painful for them because it shows the world values you in ways they never did. Final goodbyes also rob them of an audience. Narcissists thrive on telling stories where they are the star. Psychologists highlight that without you, they lose their main listener. The silence forces them to face themselves, and what they see isn't flattering. Losing their stage hurts more than they admit because it strips them of purpose. They may attempt one last dramatic gesture. Psychologists describe this as the grand hoover. Lavish promises, emotional confessions, or even marriage proposals. But these aren't genuine. They're desperate acts to undo the goodbye. When you don't fall for it, the rejection stings deeply. It's proof that their tricks no longer work. As time passes, they start to realize the gravity of their loss. Psychologists emphasize that narcissists don't process pain quickly. It creeps in over months or years. Each reminder of you, whether a song or a memory, reopens the wound. The final goodbye becomes a shadow that lingers long after the relationship ends. They regret losing the person who truly saw them. Psychologists explain that empaths often see the good in narcissists even when hidden. That rare acceptance is something they crave, even if they abuse it. Losing that mirror hurts because they know no one else will look past their mask with the same depth. Narcissists also feel exposed when you move on peacefully. Psychologists say your ability to walk away without bitterness highlights their immaturity. They regret pushing you to that point because your calm exit contrasts sharply with their chaotic reaction. It hurts their ego to see that you handled the ending with more dignity than they did. Final goodbyes remind them that love cannot be forced. Narcissists spend their lives trying to control emotions, but psychologists affirm that love disappears when it's not respected. They regret too late that they destroyed the one thing they needed most: genuine affection. That regret lingers forever because they know they can't recreate what they lost. They may try to convince themselves they don't care. Psychologists highlight this as denial, bragging that they're better off. But these words ring hollow. The louder they insist, the more they reveal their pain. True indifference doesn't need performance. Their need to announce it proves the goodbye still haunts them. Some narcissists become obsessed with proving they've won. Psychologists explain that they may flaunt new relationships or achievements, but this isn't success. It's desperation. Each display is aimed at you, a plea for you to notice. That obsession is hurtful for them, because deep down they know your silence speaks louder than their show. They regret underestimating your strength. Psychologists affirm that narcissists assume their victims will stay trapped, but your final goodbye shattered that belief. Every day you stay gone is a reminder of their miscalculation. That regret cuts deep because they realize they trained you to become stronger than they ever imagined. Final goodbyes also highlight their lack of growth. Psychologists note that while survivors heal, learn, and evolve, narcissists stay stuck. Watching you grow only magnifies their stagnation. That contrast hurts because it proves the game they played led nowhere, while your courage led to freedom and transformation. They may try to circle back years later, pretending to reconnect casually. Psychologists say this shows they never processed the goodbye. The wound stayed open. But when you ignore or politely decline, the pain resurfaces. That rejection reaffirms that the game is truly over, leaving them with regret that never fades. They regret losing someone who believed in them. Psychologists explain that survivors often see potential in narcissists, offering patience and support. But when that belief is gone, it's gone forever. They know no one else will invest that deeply. That regret is haunting, because they realize they threw away something rare. Final goodbyes expose the truth about their relationships. They were never built on love, only control. Psychologists emphasize that when the control ends, so does the connection. This reality hurts them because it confirms what they fear most, that they are incapable of true intimacy. The goodbye becomes proof of their emptiness. They regret when they see you thriving in authenticity. Psychologists highlight that narcissists live behind masks, while survivors embrace truth. Watching you live freely without pretense is painful for them. It hurts because it shows the difference. Your life moves forward in honesty, while theirs remains trapped in illusion. The final goodbye strips them of the illusion of immortality. Psychologists say narcissists act as if their influence will last forever. But when you stop thinking about them, talking about them, or reacting to them, they fade. That fading hurts more than any rejection, because it confirms their greatest fear, being forgotten. They regret that they taught you resilience. Psychologists affirm that every insult, lie, and betrayal became a lesson. Instead of breaking you, they shaped your strength. Your resilience hurts them because it proves their cruelty backfired. The very pain they inflicted became the foundation of your freedom. And here's the conclusion. When the game is over, narcissists don't handle goodbyes with dignity. They rage, deny, replace, and regret. But nothing changes the truth. You walked away, and this time it's final. That final goodbye becomes their eternal wound. The proof that their control was never permanent. And for you, it's the start of freedom they never thought you'd claim.